waging war on drugs. An American helicopter with Bolivian pilots scouring the jungle for coca, the source of cocaine. Made in Bolivia, smoked, injected and snorted the world over. But for some, the collateral damage in this war is becoming too great. US-backed forces are accused of torture and of murder. Now the war on drugs is being enlisted in the war on terrorism. Marching into battle. The Chapare jungle in central Bolivia is warm, fertile ground. For the last 5 years, the country has been trying to implement Plan Dignity, an operation to eradicate all coca from this region. It's certainly been a military success. Over 80% of the crop has been uprooted using American greenbacks and Bolivian mussel. As the army moves from field to field, farmers follow in their wake to retrieve what's left of their raised crop. As long as they remain passive, the only penalty is a loss of income.
¿Cuál es rentable? Este coca es rentable. ¿Dónde se vende?
Roberto Garcia wonders how he'll survive without his crop. Clutching a lunch bag of coca leaves, he insists this is about economic survival and cultural integrity. It's an argument the military doesn't buy.
Nadie es desconocido que la producción de coca.
Everyone knows that the coca grows in the jungle of Cochabamba and ends up in the production of cocaine. It's a commercial vehicle that serves the production of cocaine.
For 5 years, farmers have been encouraged to grow other crops: bananas, pineapples, papaya. For 5 years, many have done what the government's ordered. The land is productive and the climate good. But after 5 years, they're still waiting for customers. Across the street, the town's coca market has no such problems. The dried leaves are brought here straight from the farms. With 4 harvests every year, it's a prodigious crop. It's strictly women's work to sort and bag the leaves, and then to weigh the coca sack. The haggling is left to the men. Finally, a price is agreed and the deal is done.
There are some pretty basic market economics at play in the Bolivian jungle. We bought these bananas at a shop just over the road. They cost us 1 Boliviano, which is about 10 pence. 10 pineapples cost the same amount, just 10 pence. These are the alternative crops that farmers are being encouraged to grow. And yet this small bag of coca leaves can fetch anything up to £3. It's pretty much a triumph of economics over politics.
Bolivians cherish coca as a cure-all plant. It's used to treat a multitude of conditions, from hunger to headaches. But neither the US nor the Bolivian government believe all this coca is just for innocent uses. The clash of cultures has become violent. The war on drugs in Bolivia may have been a military success, but critics say it's been a human rights disaster. Hundreds of farmers have been detained. Allegations of torture and beatings are rife. Since the US began to fund Bolivia's Plan Dignity, over 50 farmers have been killed. Frustrated by the lack of support for their alternative crops, farmers held a protest in the jungle town of Chimare last December. It was captured on tape by a local cameraman. The farmers dumped piles of fruit by the roadside fruit they considered to be worthless. The US-funded Expeditionary Task Force arrived and a standoff developed.
A nosotros a patadas nos ha metido.
Elvira Acosta was there. She said the farmers were given 5 minutes to clear the area. Then the army moved in, calling for calm while attacking the farmers. Elvira said the crowd was chased behind the building. She was grabbed and kicked. Tear gas was fired. The soldiers caught up with union leader Casimiro Wonka. Shots rang out. It was live ammunition. Casimiro had been shot. He died minutes later. And a farmer, Fructuoso Herbas, had a bullet in his leg. Fructuoso can no longer farm his land. His leg was amputated. He has an artificial limb that doesn't fit. Using a forked stick wedged into his stump to control the pedals, he drives a battered taxi which has no brakes around Via Esperanza, village of hope.
We didn't do anything to attack them. The only thing we say was, please, don't do anything bad to us. Maybe some of my companions did something, but I didn't see anyone attack them. I did not do anything to provoke them. I don't offend people. I love people, even if they are military. But I didn't do one thing bad to them, and they did this awful thing to me. And now I cannot walk since they done this to my leg.
No puedo caminar de lo que me han hecho mi pie. No trabajo. No sé con qué mantener a mi familia. Es tan difícil me han hecho.
I don't know how I'm going to take care of my family. This is very difficult, what they have done to me. I am hoping that I can have a new leg. This is a hard life they have given me. What's so bad about putting the fruit near the street? We were not provoking them. That is what happened to me, Mr. Journalist. It is the truth.
Eso ha pasado conmigo, señor periodista.
Fructuoso must now wait for his children to become old enough to tend the fields. The military's investigation accused the farmers of being drunk and belligerent, concluding the soldiers shot in self-defense. To date, no one has served any time in prison for any of the farmers' deaths.
This is not an issue of armed resistance as much as it is being able to put dinner on the table for their families. It's important to note that coca growers have attempted to block the main roads. They have surrounded eradication camps, but that there has been a consistent pattern of excessive use of force by the Bolivian security forces. There have been murders, there have been cases of torture, illegal entries, consistent beatings, which has created a pattern of violence that tends to escalate in the Chapare region.
But the view from the mountaintop city of La Paz looks rather different. The US says over a dozen soldiers have also been killed, some of whom were tortured. Rather than innocent pawns, they eye the coca growers with suspicion.
Well, I think those allegations are considerably inflated and exaggerated. Certainly when you're talking about violent confrontations between, in this case, cocaleros and Bolivian security forces, unfortunately these events happen. I don't think it's happened on a large scale, and it certainly is not a government policy, Bolivian government policy, nor a U.S. policy to support, human rights abuses.
The Leahy Amendment states that none of the funds made available by the United States may be provided to any unit of the security forces of a foreign country if the Secretary of State has credible evidence that such a unit has committed gross violations of human rights. Are you happy that there has been no breach?
I think the key phrase is gross violations of human rights. I'm perfectly happy concluding that there have not been gross violations of human rights. on the part of U.S.-supported security forces in Bolivia.
From jungle to jungle. Catherine Lederber's bringing the message from Bolivia to Washington. The allegations of abuse are gaining congressional support. Some politicians are now convinced the United States government is breaking its own guidelines on overseas aid.
It strikes me that a gross abuse of human rights is the prevention of people from carrying out their lives in the way that they see fit. That's an abrogation of democratic principles and the abrogation of the essential principles of this country. And injuring people is a gross abuse of their human rights, and certainly taking someone's life is about as gross an abuse of human rights as one can imagine.
The BBC's been given access to an internal US Defense Department investigation into the Chimoré incident. It's a damning indictment of America's refusal to apportion blame. The report says that the military's version of events is inaccurate at best and a complete fabrication at worst. It goes on to conclude that the events are so bad that the video could be used as an excellent example of what not to do in terms of crowd control and military discipline. Critics of US policy think there's worse to come. Washington's now explicitly linking the war on drugs with a war on terrorism. The fear is that this will provide an excuse for even more aggressive involvement in Latin America.
We're dealing with something that's much larger than the Chupari coca production. We're dealing with an international drug trade, which of course in and of itself is reprehensible in terms of what it does to people's lives and the societies that it corrupts. But I think there's a global dimension to all this also. And in that sense, I think it makes the war on drugs, as it's called, even more significant and even more important.
The truth is that this struggle has dented neither the supply nor the demand for cocaine. For every hectare of coca uprooted in Bolivia, so another has been planted elsewhere in the Andes. On the streets of Europe and the USA, the use of the drug is undiminished. Call it a war on drugs or a war on terrorism, the need to improve results is driving US policy. The real and present danger is that this zeal will magnify the abuses witnessed in Bolivia.